Okay, so I'm going to jump straight in with The Boogeyman. It's directed by Rob Savage and it came out of the studios a couple of months ago. Rob Savage is known for directing one of Lockdown's favourite films, The Host and Dashcam. And it's also written by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, who wrote A Quiet Place, and also Mark Heyman, who wrote Black Swan. Boogeyman, I want to talk about this film because I was still in my mind. The monster still, I think I get a bit scared in the dark sometimes. I'm still looking under my bed. So I thought, why not talk about it again and bring it up? So this film is from the mind of the best-selling author Stephen King, and it's based on his initial story in 1973. There was a lot of strong reviews in the cinema, which resulted in a cinema release rather than it being distributed straight into online streaming platforms. And it's got a great cast in it. It's starring Sophie Thatcher. We've got Vivian Lyra Blair and Chris Messina, who are the main cast in the story. I thought it was an absolutely brilliant, great psychological, supernatural horror. I thought it had so many great elements to it. And especially, I think these days, we really rely with sort of a monster under the bed story. What really gets us is we really rely on sort of the monster, how it's going to jump scare us, and also the actual reveal of what the monster looks like. I think that's very important because we can watch this film, a horror film, and we can go all the way through with all these build-ups and suspense. And then we get to the end, and then once this monster is revealed, maybe the payoff isn't worth it. But for this film, I thought it was really good. So going back, so The Boogeyman is a monster under the bed story. It's about a young family who are grieving for their mother, centering around a father who is a therapist, and he has two girls, Sadie and Sawyer. When the therapist patient turns up seeking help at the door, he leaves behind a supernatural entity that feeds off this therapist's family. And what happens is, what I like about this film is that it easily from the start, we've got a really great fleshed out setup where we immediately understand the rules of the world. There's a fantastic teaser opening where we're introduced to the monster and the rules of perhaps how the monster works, the boogeyman. And then on, it's really easy to understand sort of the world and the characters, their motivations in the story. What I really liked as well is the genre and the tone, because there's been recently a lot of Stephen King stories that have been adapted into films. So we've got It and Pet Cemetery, and I think this film is up there with those films. So jumping straight into sort of more the structure and the story. It's a good versus evil story, a human versus monster story. It's a very sort of simple narrative where it starts off where the family are grieving for their mother, and then a monster is basically haunting them, and they've got to find a way to defeat this monster before it takes their family and rips their family apart. So it's got quite high stakes at the start, and throughout the story we hear about a lot of families that have been ripped apart, and the world has been turned upside down by this monster. So we initially hear about all the crimes where this monster is scaring people and making them fear for their lives in the dark. And we hear about sort of how sort of this monster works. So there's different rules. So going back to the rules, this monster only works in the dark. It preys on children and families that are suffering. It primarily takes children, really. But what I like about this story is because it kind of introduced itself as an old folk tale. So all these families and the parents, if your child said there's a monster under my bed, like, you're not really gonna believe them. It's one of those sort of boy who cried wolf sort of stories. But this sort of boogeyman is a real creature that is hiding in the dark and is going to take children at night. So what I liked about it is a very action-driven story, and the dialogue kind of came second because it was the cherry on top. It wasn't really overridden with dialogue. It was sort of the cherry on top that we yearned for, and the action really sort of took control and navigated the story, especially because it's a supernatural horror. I think that with horrors you are going to get a lot more action, but the action was it was interesting. We weren't sort of sitting back sort of not interested in it. It was a lot of what was good with the elements. There was a lot of jump scares. I had my fingers in my ears the entire time, I think, because I think what was good, it really played on the jump scares. It didn't overdo it or anything. It was just sort of the right amount of jump scares. And I've even read a lot of people agree with that. They thought, I know some films you tend to just sort of throw a scary moment in there because it's a horror and you can, whereas this film really sort of thought about when it was going to sort of plot and plan and put these sort of sow these seeds in. So what was good about that is that when we came to the actual reveal of the monster, it was a good payoff. And when it came to sort of showing us what the monster actually looked like, we didn't think sort of like we've been waiting this entire time and it wasn't scary, because it exposed the monster, but it didn't fully expose it. So because I think sometimes when you've been building such suspense throughout a story, you kind of there's sometimes nowhere to go from a sort of structural point of view. Like, you've built it up so much and with this sort of rising action, and we can't go anywhere. So I think sometimes people make it impossible for the movie to excel anymore. So rather than revealing the monster completely, there was a bit of a half reveal, kept it in the dark a little bit. So it still made, I wasn't sort of bothered by that. It still made it really interesting, kind of encapsulated this sort of monster's world still, and kept it, revealed a bit of mystery, but without fully revealing mystery. So talking about this, I'm going to go back to sort of the monster. When it comes to the reveal of this monster throughout the story, what's plotted is we've got these small jump scares. We've got these pictures that the kids have and the victims have drawn of this monster before they've died and been taken. So there's these small seeds where we sort of learn about perhaps what it looks like or how it works. What I love as well is that it's very sort of the writers have written very authentic, sort of got a very, very authentic imagination about this story, because the monster seems to sort of echo people's voices and things as to how it sort of gets you, and the more you fear for it, the stronger it gets. And we see that happen throughout the story as the action gets bigger and bigger and stronger. From the start, like I said, there's the stakes from the start. It preys on people's families. It takes your family, so it's almost like a survival story in itself. So the stakes are there. It's very sort of high risen action. And in terms of the messages of this story, it's definitely about, there's strong messages in it. It's about facing your fear. I think it's about overcoming what you're afraid of, and also a lesson about how you'll be much stronger for it through this sort of monster story. I think it's also about, because it comes down to that story about the boy who cried wolf, I think it comes down to not being dismissive or ignorant over what people are telling you sometimes, because throughout this narrative, these two children, Sadie and Sawyer, are trying to convince their dad that there is a monster under the bed and it's going to take them. And the dad is very sort of dismissive of what they're saying. It's not real, and he's still living in trauma over his wife's death. So I think there's a couple of important messages in this story that is wrapped in this horror. And also I'm going to go into about I thought the characters from the start were really engaging, because they had this trauma that they were living over and over day to day from the start. It really was a great sort of emotional attachment for us with the characters. So we had three characters, like this family that we were constantly attached to through the start. I say one of the main characters, the protagonist, was Sadie, who sort of we were more focused on throughout the narrative. And what I liked about her was that she was the main protagonist. She's a teen, she's an outsider, she's struggling with her mum's loss, but even at school she's an outsider that can't fit in. She's one of those girls with headphones constantly in her ears, and I thought that was a really great sort of set up for her that made people easily sort of drawn to her. I think empathy was easily sort of created for her. And there's also, in terms of sort of the relationship line between the characters, it was a little bit like a kids versus the parents story in a way, when it comes to sort of the B relationship storyline, because the kids the kids are needing sort of, they're grieving for their mum, they need help and guidance, they need their dad to step up. And while their father was stepping up and being a dad, he wasn't sort of confronting his trauma over his wife's passing. So they wanted to talk about it and he didn't. So there was always this constant conflict there. So one of the, in terms of sort of the character transformation with these characters, what I liked was at the start they just were very shut down, had a lot of inner issues, and as the narrative progresses they learn to open up and talk about their feelings and even perhaps let go in a way of their past, because it started where we had all this, we had the mother's art studio, we had all her things, and while they're trying to overcome and defeat this monster, in the end they kind of, it kind of wraps up in a nutshell itself. They have to kind of learn to let go in a way, of sort of this big traumatic event that's happened gradually. But I thought there was, as a horror, I'm a big fan of horror, so I thought there were so many elements to it, so much action, that was different, authentic. I thought the monster worked differently. It tried to sort of prey on its victims in a different way. So I thought it really worked well.
Thanks so much for watching our video, everybody. We really hope you enjoyed it. You can like us and subscribe to us over here on YouTube. And if you want to hear more of this conversation, head over to Spotify, Apple, places like that for a much longer version. But for now, YouTube thinks you'll like these ones. They look pretty good. I reckon you should check it out, especially that top one. Ooh, nice.